Hello. Welcome to the live stream on April 8th. This is Wednesday. We're going to talk about the Artemis 2 interview of the Artemis 2 crew talking to the children from Canada. Because, they have the onboard crewman from Canada, so they're going to let him talk to children at a school. And you're going to see some questions about stars and how they eat and things of that nature. And it's interesting. Other things are going to go on. You're going to see, if you stay with me, I'm going to show you a food bag that has a mysterious red dot on it that disappears. It's on it, and then it disappears as it spins around, as it's floating. We're going to analyze some of the things that Reed said about his observation of stars when he looks out the window, and Earth and the moon that seem to have discrepancies with what people from NASA have said in the past. We're going to look at and talk about Van Allen belts. But we're also going to look at some CGI effect, maybe something around Jeremy's face that was affected by the bag, which would indicate there are two different layers that you're looking at as you're watching this Artemis footage, and that these guys are somehow having the things out in front of them, the bags, the toy, the plushy toy. They seem to be maybe on a CGI layer or controlled somehow. We don't know exactly, but let's get started. Let me show you some of the footage that I got from, I got this from the CNN show, when it says the CNN astronauts, on CNN, astronauts speak from space. And you're going to see, let's just start it off. I'm going to show you, when they're doing a CPR test, there's actually a show of gravity with this device that's hanging from the ceiling. If you see, I don't know what this is, this thing here, but when this guy Reed gets up and he hits it with his hand, every time he hits it with his hand, it swings away and then it swings right back. Like it's got a gravity, that's its gravity standing position. And it's interesting to watch. We're also going to look at how the female astronaut's hair, is it Christine? Her hair goes forward and back and seems to do some irregular things that if you try to apply physics to the way her hair is moving, you kind of have to concentrate and think about it. It's doing some weird things. It's really teased out, and it must have some really, really industrial strength hairspray. We're going to talk about stars and whether they twinkle or not. I told you about the bag and Van Allen belts. We're going to look at an old video that was made in 1966 that is, today when you look at it, it looks like a cartoon from the 1950s. It's hilarious. So I also got some of this information from Christina Randall today. She's got a channel, and a shout out to her. Let me show you if you can see there you go. That's the Christina Randall show. She's got 1.78 million subscribers. And very, very interesting stuff coming from her. Let's look at first the interview. We're going to see, this was on CNN. It's also on, did I get the CNN version? That's me. This one I'm getting from Video from Space channel, but I also had the CNN version. It's the exact same thing. But let's go back and watch what they're doing. Do you hear that? Let's see. Good. This is a classroom.
Thank you, Jeremy. We have many Canadians who are eager to ask you some questions. We're going to start right ahead with those. The first question is from Dia in Mississauga, Ontario.
Do astronauts get special training to do CPR in space? How do you actually do that when there's no gravity?
One thing here that I want to stop it for, can you see this astronaut, how she's making faces and laughing and squinting while the girl is talking? There's supposed to be a 4 to 9 second delay. How is she, she does laugh with the squint and everything. Did you just see that? Watch.
To do CPR in space? Do astronauts get special training to do CPR in space? How do you actually do that when there's no gravity?
Did you see that? She can't stop herself from reacting because she's hearing it. She can't fake the count to 9. It used to be 9 seconds. Now they're saying 4 seconds, but either way, she's reacting immediately to this little girl. And when I first heard that little girl, I thought she was speaking French, but she's actually speaking English. I don't know if you've seen this video, but that little girl was actually saying, "Can you actually practice perform CPR in space? And how do you do it?" So they're going to do a CPR demonstration. Let's watch that.
You just have to help me out with that question. Was that about CPR training? Is that what I caught?
See, he didn't understand it
That's
either.
right, Jeremy. You're asked do you have special training to do CPR in space, and how do you actually do that in zero gravity?
Wait, did she miss her timing again?
Yeah, it's a great question.
When she nodded her head? I just saw that.
Just before.
Do you have special training to do CPR in space, and how do you actually do that in zero
1,
gravity?
2, 3, 4. Okay, she's nodding on time. All right, let's watch when Reed gets up.
We're all alone up here, just the 4 of us, and if we ever had to do it, we definitely want to plan. And so we talk camera view. If I just
okay, look, okay, he hits this thing right here. Do you see that? Swing it. Now watch. He hits it again. And it swings back down. He keeps hitting it, and it keeps swinging back down. See his contact with it. I know I'm interrupting, but it's not important to hear what he's saying. It's important to watch what he's hitting.
And Reed here, I can push on him.
See it?
So this is one of our CPR objectives in space. This is actually not the best one, but it's the only one you can see in camera.
Okay, let's go back and see that. From the first time he hits it. When he's crawling in. Okay, watch.
That I can show you in the.
He hits it right there. Now look, instead of just floating up away from him or whatever, or turning, it just comes right back down and sits on the back of his neck.
Camera view. If I just slide Reed over here.
See, it goes back down. Did you see that? Right.
Slide Reed over here.
There, it just went down in an arc and returned back to its position.
That I can show you in the camera view if I just slide Reed over here.
Okay. So that's the first thing.
So what I need to do is support myself and have him against something. So if I put my back here.
It's doing it again. Do you see his hand hitting it? Watch.
So if I put my back here.
Bonk. When he lets go, look. It seems to always return to its position of rest in the same spot. No matter when he, see, look at that.
So this is.
Did you see that? He hit it pretty good that time. Bonk, and it went back.
So this is one of our CPR on him.
Bonk, and it went back.
So this is
again.
One of our CPR objectives in space. This is actually not the best one, but it's the.
I wonder if these questions aren't pre-written for these kids to just read. I don't know that they're actually coming from just the children's active imaginations, because maybe they have the children rehearse these questions, or they hand them out. Who would like to read this question? I'll read it. I'll read it. I'll read it. And they volunteer because they probably planned to have a child ask about CPR and do this whole scene right here that they're acting out. And the other things throughout the video. But the whole time I'm watching this video, it's only 13 minutes long. I'm also watching Christine's hair everywhere she moves. And that makes it more interesting.
The only one you can see in camera.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeremy. The next question is from Liam in El Cebu.
You can
Watch her
one of our
hair,
CPR
right?
objectives in space.
There. Look at her hair right here at the number. Can you see the number on my screen? No. Let me raise it up a little bit so you can see the number. There. Do you see the... I don't want to raise it too far. Hold on. Go back down a little bit. Okay. Watch the number right here, right at 206, right where we're at here. Her hair goes down when she nods her head really quickly.
This is actually not the best.
Let
So
me go
this
back to
is
it.
one of our CPR objectives in space.
See, okay, see right there? She just nodded her head forward. Her hair in space, with the inertia of her just looking down really quickly like that, should have made all the hair on her head whip downward toward the floor. But it won't because it's hairsprayed.
This is actually not the best.
Watch it,
So this
watch it
is
bounce.
one of our CPR objectives in space. This is actually not the best
Why-
one, but it's
do you
the
see
this
that?
is one of our CPR objectives in space. This is actually not the best one.
She's using a big curling iron and a ton of hairspray. All right, what was the next thing? When Reed talks about stars, it's at 241. Let's see. Did some homework on this, watching this, and made some notes. Watch.
We have so much illumination from the sun on the moon and the earth right now. It is hard at times to see stars. Just like when you walk out in the daytime, you see a blue sky but no stars. We look outside and we see the black space and no stars. But tonight we're going to be pointed into deep space.
Why can't they have windows on both sides where they look in both directions? Let's not forget, folks, that this space program, it's been what, 50 years ago, more since they went to the moon, and they don't have GoPro cameras on the craft or anywhere. They should have cameras all over the place, taking all kinds of angles of the moon and the earth and everything the craft is doing on the outside while they're doing whatever on the inside, but they don't. Why can't they show us? Again, we have so much problem with, why don't they just show us the damn earth? Instead, we get these little cheesy cuts and composite images, and we don't have photographs. Why won't NASA spend money on a bunch of cameras? They should have decked out that craft with the best camera equipment. If you look at extreme sports, they have cameras all over it. You know, if somebody's going to jump from one airplane to another with no parachute, they've got cameras that can cover every single angle. The person's wearing a camera. The people that do the cliff jumping, any type of extreme sport, even sports with airplane acrobatics, they have all kinds of cameras shooting from all kinds of angles, and you always see the ground. Why can't Artemis see the ground? And what gets me the most is the ship is called Integrity. Integrity. Can you imagine? It's a slap in the face. Why would they tell you their ship is called Integrity when they're doing all of these lies and magic tricks? I'm going to show you a little bit when a food bag has a little CGI dot on it that disappears. There's no dot on it, and then there's a dot on it, and then it disappears. I don't know if you saw this video already and you did not notice that. I'm going to show it to you. It's just disgusting, and it's called integrity. Integrity means basically truthful, honest, sincere, wholesome. Have some integrity, people. But of course you can't. If you're in a cabal, if you basically have to be a Freemason or an Eastern Star for the women to be in a program like this. And then you're sworn in. You have oaths that have death penalties at different levels. You know, what is it? The first oath, everybody knows that, like the mafia goes, if you talk, anytime you see somebody that dies from a neck injury or hangs himself from a unit on a door, it's usually compared to these oaths. And that's the symbol. Don't speak. And I'm not thinking about the song. All right, let's look at where he talks about the stars. And the interesting thing that he says, it kind of upset me when he said it, because he says that stars don't twinkle. And that's not true.
So we're going to turn out all the lights in the spacecraft for the first time on the mission. And if you give yourself about 20 or 30 minutes, we do this all the time on the International Space Station. Christina and I just have great fond memories of this. You'll start to see the stars. And if you give it enough time, you will see so many stars. It's hard to see the constellations because there are so many stars out there. And the coolest part of those stars is they do not twinkle at all. They are just perfect. They almost look fake. They're just perfect pin.
Interesting. But I caught this at 3:22. Let me make sure you can still see the number counter. Okay, you can. At 3:22, he says, you cannot see the stars twinkle. Why? Why could you not see the stars twinkle? But right when he says it almost looks fake, right when he says the word fake is edited out where you can't hear it. Right at 3:22. We're at 3:24. Let me back up once for 5 seconds, and here we go. Watch.
They do not twinkle at all. They are just perfect. They almost look fake. They're just perfect pinpricks.
Do you see that? They took out the word fake. NASA took out the word fake from, this is the commander, Reed, from his, what he's talking about, talking to the children, when he says they almost look, and you don't hear him say anything. Why would they, when he says they almost look fake? Remember when Elon Musk said that his roadster in space looked so cheesy that it almost looked fake? Or what did he say? It looks so good, it's got to be fake? Or I can't remember right now. But the other thing he says is that stars don't twinkle. Watch this.
Of light. So that is our homework for tonight, Jeremy. We are doing that.
We'll take a picture.
Perfect is they do not twinkle at all.
Stars do not twinkle at all. Now that is a lie. That's a bold face. We know. I know personally. I had an experience out of body that I've covered on other episodes of my channel, where I actually flew through the waters above. You know, the Bible talks about how God created the earth and he separated the waters from the waters. Well, if you look at ancient astronomy, I actually look at the ancient Persian astronomy, actually, which is today's Iran. They had it correct. They had a flat plane Earth with 7 planets, and then a layer of water, and then the stars, and then the firmament where God is. And I've flown around through those things, and I remember flying through the sun. I remember when I saw Jupiter coming, it was the biggest one, the big one. But I did not feel any of those because I was in my spirit energy torus, just flying around. I remember I was like a transparent ball. Let's see, how much is that? I'd say 1.5 meters in diameter. I think if you can wrinkle space and time together in those dimensions, you really can be any size. Your spirit can be any size. If you want to call it your spherical halo. Do you know how people, when they're looking at UFO craft, they'll say that it looked like it was off in the distance? Like, let's say it looks like you're on a bay and it looks like it's like way on the other side of the bay. And then suddenly it seems to shift a little bit and it's in your backyard. And it took no time and you didn't see any movement. It just seems to kind of just move without moving, but be wherever it wants to be. And your perception of where it is instantly changes, although you perceive some type of movement. But stars twinkle because you're looking through water. I know that for a fact. That's why when you look up and you see the stars twinkling, have you ever put a mask on in your swimming pool and you look up and you lay down, blow your oxygen out and lay down on the bottom of the pool, not in the deep end, but you don't have to, but just by the stairs. Don't do this at home, but be safe. Get somebody to watch you. Put a mask on or goggles, lay down on your back on the bottom of the pool in the shallow section and just look up, and everything you look at has the undulation of the surface. Yeah, you look at. I remember doing that and seeing the tree and people standing around, and you can look at them. It's an interesting thing to do as a kid or as an adult. Have you ever done that? That is why stars twinkle. Now, just because they are at more or less in relative distance, they're at the moon's. They're coming back. They're almost at where the moon is. The moon from the Earth in distance, the translunar space, they call that, the space between the Earth and the moon, is so small compared to the distance to the firmament, or even the distance to where the stars are, that you cannot say just because you are going around the apex and apogee around the back of the moon that stars don't twinkle anymore. That's a script. That's a scripted lie. It does not make any sense. That offended me. It hit me as an offense when he said that. I was like, oh, lie. What do you mean there's no twinkling of the stars? Because it was just because you're in a capsule and you flew around the backside of the moon, suddenly the stars don't twinkle anymore? How offensive. I was personally offended.
They are just perfect. They almost look they're just perfect pinpricks of light. So that is our homework for tonight, Jeremy. We are doing that.
We'll take a picture.
Okay, now we're going to look at the
We
food
now have
packet.
a question from students in Sanikiluwak, Nunavut.
What types of food do you
Oh, hello. I'm
eat
sorry. I
in
was not
space,
looking
and
in
how
the
do you
chat.
cook it?
Polygon, how are you? Let me put this on pause and talk to you, Polygon. What's going on? Same when Elon launched a car into space, the LCD display in the car was working. In the deep vacuum of space, it would have bubbled. The ship was 322 feet high, right? That's Skull and Bones. Launched on April Fool's Day. Which ship? The one that they just launched in? Oh, I didn't know that. It's 322 feet high. It was launched on April Fool's Day. I know that was, you wrote Skull and Bones, right? Elon, it looks so fake it has to be real. That's right, that's what it was. These guys, when I sat down to watch this video today, it's only 13 minutes long, and I thought, I'm going to find some errors in here and some things to talk about on my show tonight. Yeah, this ship, it was, okay, right? That's interesting. I wonder where the 322 came from. I know it means it's some sacred number to the Illuminati, but what does it mean? Where did it come from? Is it a master number? Is it a prime number? Is it a distance from one place to another? Is it a degree on a compass heading? Is it the number of people you have to kill to be on Lucifer's left side? Who knows? I mean, I don't know. It's let me show you the food bag real quick, and then let's chat. Did you notice the food bag with the red dot? Anybody? Let me show you. Usually whenever you have dots on products, that's to be able to track it with a CGI camera because you're layering with CGI. Now let's look at this, and I will show you the food bag. I'm going to zoom into it also. Where did I have the red dot? There's no, okay, it's at 428. Let's go to 428. Okay, that's the shrimp cocktail. Let me rewind it a little bit and just play it so you can see what they're doing.
And bags, because some kind, plastic, and in
They
space,
pull all
you
these
really
foods
just
out of
eat
that
all of
bag.
your food out of bags of some kind, plastic bags or little metallic bags, because we have to rehydrate a lot of our food. This is actually shrimp cocktail. And this has been rehydrated already. So we added water to it, and the shrimp soaks back up the water, and it's actually pretty tasty. This is an example of...
Okay. Do you see the red dot on that silver bag? Why is there a red dot on the silver bag? Look at that. Let's rewind.
Has been rehydrated already, so we added water to it, and the shrimp soaked back up the water, and it's actually pretty tasty. This is an example of a food that has not been rehydrated yet. It
Look
got
at that.
all
There's
dried
still a
out
red dot.
for
Now it's
flying
still
up here in
there.
space, and those are green beans. So we do have to eat our vegetables even in space, but don't worry, they do give us mac and cheese.
It disappears when the silver bag goes. Oh, see, the red dot was on there when he puts it in his left hand.
We do have to eat our vegetables even in space. Here in space, and those are green beans. So we do have to eat our vegetables even in space. But
Right there. Okay, see, the dot still is on the bag. Now, when they took the bag out of the, in the beginning, when they took the bag out of the Ziploc, there was no red dot on it.
don't worry, they do
Watch,
give us
I'm
mac
gonna
and
try
cheese.
to go back.
Dried out from soak this food out of bags of some. Let's see
Hey,
what we're
watch.
gonna pull
Let's watch
out.
the
So-
silver bag come out and see if it
This
has
is
a red
Jeremy's
dot.
dinner, and in space, you really just eat all of your food out of bags of some kind, plastic bags or little metallic bags, because
Okay, there's the side with the white label.
we have to
No
rehydrate
dot.
a lot of our food. This is actually shrimp cocktail. And this has been rehydrated already, so we added water to it, and the shrimp soaked back up the water.
Right there. There appears the dot. It's on the back side without the label.
And it's actually pretty tasty.
Why?
This is an example of a food that has not been.
Why would they need to put a dot on that bag with some type of CGI control when it seems like all of the things are floating around the cabin pretty well, and Reed's back there pushing them around like you push around balloons with helium? Why does the silver bag have a red dot on it? Does the shrimp get a red dot? Let's see.
Rehydrated yet. It got all dried out for flying up here in space, and those are
No.
green beans.
Green
So
beans.
we do have to eat our vegetables even in space, but don't worry, they do give us mac and cheese.
What was the other thing?
Nous avons maintenant une question dans la salle. Emily.
Oh, the other thing is his face
So
blurred.
that
Did
it
you
got
see
all
when the
this
silver
is an
bag passed
example
his
of back up
eyebrow?
the water, and it's
Right there. Right where it's at right now, touching his eyebrow. I'm going to slow this down to slow speed. Watch this. We're going to go as slow as we can go and zoom in as close as I can get on his eye. Watch how the silver bag
actually pretty tasty.
distorts his face. Watch right there. Now what? It's going to pull on his eyebrow.
Actually pretty tasty.
Did you see that?
And it's
Right there. Did you see it pull his eyebrow? That is weird. The red dot's on it, and it just pulled his eyebrow, and it made his eyebrow skinnier. Watch.
water, and it's
Zoop. There went his eyebrow.
water, and it's
Zoop. Do you see that?
water, and it's
Isn't that weird? What are they doing? The inside of that thing looks like a fire hazard as well, of all kinds of things you could get caught and pull out and break cables and such. All of the ships look like that. I've asked that forever. Why do they design ships for astronauts to be in? And they've always got unfinished cabling going everywhere. And there's cables sticking out everywhere. You could be going by and catch a giant bundle with your foot and rip out the ship's control. And why isn't everything neatly, like when you buy a car and the door panels are nice and plush and neatly formed, and they don't have the wires hanging out of them. You don't have wires sticking out of your dashboard that you have to push out of the way. Why would they have a brand new ship with wires and air hoses from an HVAC sticking out everywhere? It's nuts. Yeah, the eyebrow distortion was crazy. Do you see that? You want to see it again? Watch it. I don't know why. What I'm trying to figure out is why, if these bags are, what is that dot right there? Was that there before?
pretty tasty.
That seems to be moving and fading around. Can you see me? I'm trying to look. Okay. Yeah, you can see me. I have to keep going back to OBS and making sure you can see me, because I'm zooming in and moving around the screen here. Okay. Look at that. Are those the green beans or the shrimp? They've also got a dot on them. And but it seems to move with it. Did you see that? It seems to not be moving with the bag exactly. Just kind of the same.
Tasty.
Whoop. See, it just kind of faded and jumped to the left and right. Watch.
Pretty tasty.
Whoop. It stayed in one spot and then now it's jumping down and it's fading.
Pretty tasty.
But let's watch it pull his eyebrow. Yep. His eyebrow just got flattened and manicured and pulled all at the same time. And then now you can kind of see a blurry over the corner of his eye. That whole region of his face just kind of blurs.
Pretty tasty.
You see it right there? Do you see how like everything just disappeared right there? It seems like there's a circle there where there's nothing. Like there are different coding patterns that you can use in your software that average the number of pixels so that the computer doesn't have to process as hard. If, like, let's say if some of this equipment back here is sitting in the same spot the entire time, then the computer will stop working and focusing on those to track action. It only focuses on what is moving. Maybe he didn't move, but this spot right there, that is weird. He just got a really short eyebrow too. Like he just got a really bad trimming going. Let's see.
And
Yep. There goes his eyebrow. Right there. Did you see that? Just kind of step over his eyelid. Right. There. The corner of his eye and his eyelid just got stepped on. Right there. Watch.
Pretty tasty.
Right there. Okay. There's the red dot. What is that?
An example of a food that has
Let's go back and see. This is the shrimp cocktail. Did it have a dot on it when she pulled it out? No. Let's see.
Cocktail.
Shrimp cocktail.
And this has been rehydrated already.
Okay, there's no dot on this side.
Added water to it.
I'm looking for a dot on the other side.
So
He's going to turn it around.
Oh,
there's a dot.
And it's actually pretty tasty.
So the shrimp cocktail has a dot on it that's blue, but the silver bag has a red dot on it, but it disappears. It's a magical red dot. Watch.
This is an example.
Reed's very careful at pushing it around so that to keep the show interesting.
Not been
Okay, the dot's still there. Still there.
It got all dried out.
Boom. No, it's still there. I was going to say.
For flying up here in space, and those are green beans.
It's gone. Did you see that? It's gone.
So we do have to eat our vegetables.
Hold on. Did you see that? The red dot's gone. Watch.
Flying
Remember the
up
dot was on the side without the label.
here in
Okay, that's the label
space,
side.
and those are green beans.
That's the side without the label, and the dot is gone. Now that's weird, isn't it? What do you think? My pointer is off the screen? Okay. Let's see. Also showing off the dehydrated food is a rehash of the same old stuff. It is, isn't it? Wasn't that what Don Pettit was doing? When, remember when he got busted with the coffee in the bag that was, the pixels were separated and outside of the bag? Yeah, they take all this time to show you the food. Why aren't they showing you what it looks like outside of the ship with all kinds of cameras? That's what I want to see. Why? When I switch to YouTube and I put my pointer on exactly what I'm looking at, my pointer should go back on the screen. Let me see. There was one part where she wags her head really hard, and it's 10:10. Okay, let's go. Let's go to 10:10. Let's look. Okay, watch. She's gonna nod her head really hard, and her hair does.
Yes and no. So they had time to come to quarantine and be.
Do you see that? How her hair moved? It looks like teased hairsprayed hair.
Come to quarantine.
See how that top spot?
Quarantine and
Let me make sure.
be with me.
Is my cursor on the screen right now? Yeah, should be.
Be with me.
Look at that. This top middle left side of her head of hair right there. It just stays the same no matter what she does.
Come to quarantine and
See how it's just standing up.
be with me.
That's not how we recognize physical movement, folks. With Newton's third law, her hair does not seem to be following Newton's third law. So that was interesting. Let's go look at this other channel that I found. Was it? No, it was this one. Christina Randall.
And they're on their way back. And there are a lot of interesting things we're going to talk about. I mean, just the fact of, did y'all see the Nutella jar that was floating around in there, and it just happened to flip perfectly to show the Nutella sign to the camera, almost like it was an ad placement, but NASA.
I did not watch all of that. That must have come off the live feed when they just watch them whenever they're going about their day. But that is pretty amazing that Nutella just seems to turn and go right perfect in front of the camera, isn't it? What about, let's see, when she's looking at, let's look at this video from the 60s. Watch what NASA was doing in the 60s. You're not going to believe it. It's so bad. And this is what people watched, and they thought, oh, wow. Remember, well, video equipment was new, so whenever you saw animation, you couldn't tell whether it was reality or not. Let me speed it up. Oh, we're at regular speed. Okay, it's at 11:53. Watch this. Real footage from CBS in 1966. Watch what they're doing here.
Line you see there to 25 feet of umbilical cord. That contains the life support system and communications link from the spacecraft life support system out through that chest pack.
That looks like claymation, stop motion claymation. You can tell. Did you see that? That was stop motion claymation. You can see it when it's jumpy. Okay, let's see.
People are responding with comments like this.
Actually, it's a link along that tether line you see there to 25 feet of umbilical cord. That contains the life support system and communications link from the spacecraft life support system out through that chest pack.
Right there. It's kind of obvious right there. See how it, right there. If you watch the right foot, it just kind of looks jerky. And then what's moving him? If he's not pulling on the tether line, then what's pulling him towards the nose of the craft? Isn't that weird? What else did I have on here? Oh, the stars. Let's see, 1901. Yeah, right here. The Magellanics. That's the Magellan cloud right there. As Pettit said, the Magellanics. Do you know Pettit said it's a papal process to get it back again? We said we can't fly to the moon because we've lost that technology, and it's a papal process to get it back again. He did not say painful. I grew up with NASA administrators. I was Mormon too in Clear Lake City, and just about everybody in my ward worked at the Johnson Space Center or for a contractor in the area. A lot of them with Rockwell. I worked with the guy that we ran scouting together, Ron Dittemore. He was a flight instructor for astronauts at Rockwell, and he wound up being the space shuttle manager. When Columbia exploded, I was going to interject this little story. When the space shuttle Columbia exploded over Texas, I was in a restaurant at a bar, and I remember I heard Ron Dittemore, and I looked up on the TV screen. I go, oh, it's Ron. Oh, look at you. You became the whole manager of the whole program. Look at you. Wow. It was like, in 1988, we worked together running the Varsity Scouts for the Mormon Ward in Friendswood, Texas, which is the sister city with Clear Lake in South Houston. And I was going to put together a rope exercise where at summer camp where you string a big, like a shipping rope between two trees, and you have two Boy Scouts pulling on the rope and another one on the other side trying to sit on it. It's like a cheap version. It's a redneck version of a bucking bronco, and you try to buck him off, and we would have paths on the ground. And I said, why don't we set that up as have you ever been to a camporee or a jamboree in scouting? Oh, was Disney the ones that were the floating umbilical cord one? I'll bet Disney helped with those because it was, what did they call that? Claymation or stop motion? It's the same thing, right? Anyway, my story about Pettit and papal process. Papal means something to do with the Pope, the Catholic Pope. And a papal process is how the Pope is chosen. When the Pope dies and all of the cardinals to get together in secret and they shut the door and they wait for the smoke. And if they get black smoke, means they voted and they were to stalemate. And until you see the white smoke, then the new Pope is chosen. That whole process is the papal process. But it's a lingo in NASA, and I heard it over and over and over again. I heard it in pre-SCORM meeting one time. The instructor was talking about something. If you're doing this in your life and you go with your family, if you're not obeying the commandments, and it's a papal process to try to get back again with them. And I thought, what? And Ron Dittemore was with me, and we were talking about that rope thing. I had actually done it at a different camp that our scoutmaster set it up, and it was a lot of fun. We didn't even have pads. We were just falling on the dirt next to a lake. He goes, hey guys, I got a rope. Let me show you a game. So when I showed it to Ron Dittemore, he said, it sounds like a papal process. And I said, papal process? I've heard that before. Brother so-and-so said that in pre-SCORM meeting. I mean, what does that mean? And he goes, it won't get approved. The higher-ups aren't going to like it, the stake leaders. We won't get funding for it. It's dangerous. doesn't go along. The parents won't like it, and it will never get that through. And I go, oh, papal process, just nearly impossible, overwhelming. There are all kinds of adjectives you can come up to describe what a papal process is, but the astronauts and flight instructors and the NASA administrators say papal process. Now, when Don Pettit, who was the guy that interviewed Pettit when he said that? Was it the guy that's smarter every day? It was the smarter every day. Smarter every day. I said that Freudian. That was a Freudian slip. Smarter every day. It was him that was asking him the question, and when Pettit said, yeah, we could go back, but it's a papal process. And I understood him perfectly. I understood him perfectly when he said that. There was no question in my mind, and I didn't even raise an issue. But then I was listening to Patricia Steer's Hot Potatoes. I used to go every Wednesday night and listen to her Hot Potatoes discussions, and Mark Sargent was taking over the show like a handler, like a Jewish handler. I liked it when she just ran it, and then he came on like, hey, why don't I do the show with you? And then I never liked him. I didn't see him as a good leader to be representing the group. And look what he did when the first TV reporters went to the first Flat Earth conference. He came out wearing those goofy blue and purple light glasses, riding around in the golf cart looking like a dumbass. And it just seemed like, every single thing that they came up with to do at the first conference was a bad idea. And he ran with the worst ideas. And it was just like, oh my God, this group that controls him out of LA, what was it, Metatron? I knew someone working on SpaceX rockets 10 years ago. I asked her if she saw anything strange, and she said they had not lightning strike protection. That was late last design. Do they need would they need lightning protection? What do airplanes use? Don't they have you have to have a rod connected to rubber? That's basically all you need, right? To insulate the craft from the strike, you have to have a rod, and it has to be either grounded to the ground or like on churches. Did you know that all of the churches, all of the Mormon churches, I'm not Mormon anymore, all of the Mormon churches have a lightning rod on the steeple so that if they get hit, the lightning won't spread throughout the church. It just goes down into the ground. But on anything flying in the air or space would have to be grounded to the craft. Mark was a shill. I could not stand him from the get-go, from the very beginning. I mean, I started you remember when Patricia traveled to England and she liked that guy and it didn't work out and she moved back? Yeah, I was talking to Patricia before that. I mean, early on. It was like in 2015 or early 2016. And then I remember I went on the Hot Potato Show on Wednesday, and suddenly, Mark Sargent this is Mark Sargent, and he's visiting. And then you could see him just creep in, and he's a creepy guy. I mean, he was always bringing up, he was like your nasty, perverted uncle that comes to the family holiday gatherings. And he was always bringing up perverted double entendres and saying stupid things and just being a creep. And he wasn't the type of person that you would want to represent you. That's why I never went to the first conference, and I've never gone to any Flat Earth conference, because since that, in the very beginning, everything was wrong, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And then when the last straw was when they had everybody collect the money for the first billboard, and he said, say research Flat Earth. And all the sheeple within Flat Earth were like, yeah, let's follow Mark. Mark has a great idea, research Flat Earth, which turned out to be the mantra of the Flat Earth Society. Yeah, who was the other guy, the artist guy that painted on the floor? He was the one in Las Vegas. Yeah. Yeah, the hyperactive weird dude, the comedian, the chain smoker. What was his name? He just disappeared quick. Yeah. He disappeared quick like evaporating gasoline. I remember him too. All of the people it seemed that came out. And then there was the guy, was it the Infinite Plane? What was his name? The Infinite Plane guy who said he was a Freemason. What was his name? Were you there, Polygon? Did you have the same handle? Polygon 2744. Before we continue this conversation, let me show you what I was going to show you. Let's get back to that discussion. I want to talk about Patricia at the very beginning back in 2015. Let me finish off what I prepared here. Okay, first they're talking about these. Can you see that? Let me check my OBS. I have to go back to
a lot of people think that they're CGI and they're not real. I don't know. I mean, it's a very interesting thought and concept. What do y'all think?
Looked away from Earth into the black void.
Because you can see, because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
Pettit is so weird.
You can see the stars.
it's
yeah.
Black void. I mean, it's black.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
You can tell they're riffing.
There's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas. Magellan clouds of the
you see
galaxy.
The Magellanic Clouds.
Now let's talk about the Van
The
Allen
Magellanics?
radiation belt theory. I'm going to try to bust it down for you guys in layman's terms what the Van Allen radiation belt is. So you think about Earth, right? And Earth has an invisible force field around it. That force field is called the magnetosphere. And inside it, there are zones called Van Allen radiation belts. So basically,
you do realize that even on a flat Earth, this still works. Because even with a toroidal field that has the center of the, let's say, donut over the North Pole, over a plane, all you have to do is draw a line, a sagittal cut, like here, if you know medical x-ray terms. If you drew a line from the edge here and say this was the surface of the flat Earth, and you cut this donut in half like you were going to put it in a toaster, that way, that's called sagittal. Then the Van Allen belts still work. We could measure them. In fact, it goes along with my theory of how the Earth works as an over-unity generator. Van Allen said the first layer is positive. If the surface of the infinite plane is negative, and we're positively charged, we stick to it, and the sky would be positive. And the Earth has this flux coming out of the North Pole that rushes towards the four corners that are cathodal. I think in Punta Arenas, when the sun went around in a loop, that was like the corner of the Cheez-It shape. And it appeared to be a full day. I think the sun looks different in its movement depending on where you are in perception looking at it. But let's keep going.
there are two giant donut-shaped rings of high-energy radiation that's trapped around the Earth. They're held in place by Earth's magnetic field, but
I want to get, remember the guy that got fired from NASA when he said that we'd never been through the Van Allen belts? He's coming up.
Multiple of them that are around the Earth, and anything that goes through them could be damaged, especially if it's electronics, like
this is Christina Randall.
Using a phone, or maybe you're live.
Give her a look up,
Imagine
Christina Randall.
Live streaming through two.
She's not a flat earther, though.
Have you ever gotten an X-ray? The person that does the X-ray goes and stands behind a wall, and you're literally traveling through multiple radiation belts, and all your electronics still work. Well, a lot of people believe that we actually still don't have the technology to go through those radiation belts.
Did you notice the Artemis 2 crew on the Integrity said that one of their laptops got burnt? That's it. They went through the Van Allen belts. You know, they had to show in the script that something failed. They couldn't have just gone through it perfectly and gone, we did it first time, no failure. So they had to say, one of our computers went out. just to show that there had to be some danger, you know. But that doesn't mean that they actually did it. It's just faking it. And why only one computer? Let's see. Oh, I got to catch up to what you're saying here. Yeah, Mark took over the whole flat earth thing. He just made me sick. I didn't like going to that meeting, and I just never, ever, ever liked it. He shot his laser gun at me one time when I was commenting. He didn't like what I said. I did, but not the 2774. Okay, on YouTube. Added the number with Polygon back in the early. You know, I had Alex Aquarius, just Alex Aquarius by itself. And then YouTube added 963. And I thought, I like those numbers, but I liked my handle without numbers. 3, 6, and 9 wasn't Tesla said if you find out the secrets, something about finding out the secrets of the universe through the numbers 3, 6, and 9. He's over animated. Who is the, let's see, who are we talking about? I think Jaron and Bob were placed to direct the flat earth movement. Yeah, to misdirect. Is that what you mean? That's what I thought. She's good at questioning narratives. The burnt laptop. Yeah, don't you agree? As soon as I heard that, I thought, oh, come on. It was a misdirect. I never, ever liked Jaron either. I never followed him. I never went and listened to his channel for anything. I only heard him whenever he was on Patricia's show. Let's look at really quick for other people who just joined our show before Polygon and I take off on a conversation, because it looks like he's an OG and we're going back. But this is John Lear. Do you know I helped John Lear with something he was researching, and I found him on Facebook. And Marfan syndrome is what Osama bin Laden died of in December of 2001. He was already being treated for it when he was on Nightline right after 9/11. They went to find him in the hospital where he was being treated for Marfan disease, which is a congenital disease where your arteries have thin walls and they balloon up and pop, and you die because you bleed out. And no one has ever lived 2 years past diagnosis of Marfan. If you look at Marfan syndrome. And I saw John Lear in an interview, and he was talking about he died of some disease that had to do with his blood or something. And John Lear wrote me back.
No astronaut ever went to the moon. No astronaut ever went more than 500 miles, 400 miles into space. And the reason is because there's a Van Allen belt, which is highly radioactive, that extends from 500 miles to 25,000 miles out in space. The reason ET put that Van Allen belt is there so we couldn't visit any place, because they don't want us contaminating the solar system or the moon or anything else until we complete our essential job here on Earth, which is to live with integrity, without envy, hate, or greed.
He just said integrity.
And to express our love to our family. So they don't want us out there, and that's why they put the Van Allen belt.
And there was even a video that was released by NASA that allegedly this guy slips up in it and says that we've never been through these radiation belts, and allegedly he was fired right after this. Watch this.
Yeah, remember this?
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station.
How did they let this guy's video get released?
Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other
Only one laptop.
electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation.
Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation.
Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Now, there's the other side of the coin where it is said that we absolutely can go through the radiation belts because astronauts don't stay in them too long. They go through them very quickly, which in some aspects is a couple hours. That doesn't seem very quickly to me, but maybe in, space time or whatever. And that they look for spots of the radiation belt that are less strong. So think about it like a storm, right? If you're going to drive somewhere, you don't want to drive through a hurricane, but you may drive through if it's drizzling. So they're taking the path where it's drizzling and not through the whole storm. But there are some people that just do not believe that they're getting out past these radiation belts and are, even if they...
If you wanted to avoid the belts, wouldn't you take off as close to the North Pole as possible, where they're the thinnest, and you would pass them where they're closest to the Aurora Borealis and the dipole? I never understood that. They say because the globe is spinning, they want to launch the rockets as close as they can to the equator so they reach orbital velocity faster. All that bullshit. But really, you should launch as close as you can get to the North Pole.
That they're able to communicate and send signals back where they're talking with, like, now it's like a 10-second delay. I mean, back in 1969, the phone calls that they were making, there were 3-second delays on landlines.
I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House, and this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here.
I mean, they were literally talking from 250,000 miles away through the radiation belt on landlines. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. So, I mean, I don't know.
Thank you, Christina Randall, for some of that footage. The Apollo missions were done during high solar activity, and they'd have been cooked easily. Oh yeah, was it? What do you mean high solar activity? As far as many flares in those years. The sun's only 3,052 miles away. I measured it myself. I triangulated 3 different continents. I think I used Madrid, New York, and Ushuaia. Just like that other Indian guy did. What was his name? There was a guy that was the mathematician in the Flat Earth crew that was doing that, and I thought, wow. And I did it myself. I remember I had to learn I'm an economist, so I know math and physics. We go to the same classes together through the undergrad program. We all take the same math classes, physics majors and economics majors. But what was I going to say? I can take anything you give me as a simple formula, like how to measure the distance to the sun and triangulate. And I remember measuring a new parsec, and that was cool. I heard that on Star Trek, and here I am coming up with a new parsec, and I came up with 3,052 miles. All you have to do it's mental gymnastics, but what you're doing when let's see, the sun goes through 11-year cycles of high and low activity effects, or ham radio. If it affects ham radio, and they ran the mission when you could have flare and cooked them. Yeah, 11-year cycles. The sun goes through 11-year cycles of flare activity. When you realize the sun travels around, it makes the sunrise set much easier to understand. Yeah, it's all perspective. And what was I going to say? The Eratosthenes experiment. You had the 2-pole experiment that was Eratosthenes. Like, he stuck a pole in a well, or they were looking in a well, and then how far away did the other person, he walked, was it 500 miles? Or no, it was closer than that, wasn't it? But he walked a distance, and they measured, like, when the sun went over this pole and the sun was going directly down the well, it was centered over the well. And then that's how I think he noticed and put the experiment together. But if you have a pole, and let's say you have two poles that are casting shadows that look like this at angles, but the poles are parallel on a flat plane, then that means the shadows are divergent, but the poles are parallel. Now, if you're on a sphere, your poles are going to be divergent, but the shadows that they cast are going to be parallel. So it's the same thing. It's just when you do the math, do you want to find parallel poles or parallel shadows? And anytime you use math as a tool, you can use a wrench as a hammer, so like, did you ever think about that? Like everybody, I sit there and I jump around, and all these people and scientists and Neil deGrasse Tyson are talking about the Aristosthenes and even David Weiss, and I want to help them. I want to help them. It's like, all you got to do, it's an assumption. When you do the math and you do the trig to find out exactly where the sun is, and it's 3,000, then you measure the base height of the right triangle to find the height of the sun over the earth. It's 3,052 miles. And then if you're doing the pole experiments in two cities on a globe, you would think over the surface, you go over the surface, the tops of the poles are divergent. But if you're on a flat plane, then no matter how far away you go, the poles are parallel. So if you find parallel poles on a flat plane, and yet the shadows are showing, let's say, 30-degree angles, and you're triangulating up this way, the sun's not that far away. But if you had parallel poles and parallel shadows, you're screwed. But it's really just the way you're thinking, it's your thought. Because if you look at those poles and you say, the poles are showing, let's see, if the poles are showing shadows, if the poles are divergent from the tops, and let's say you're by this pole and the shadow is 30 degrees, and the other pole, well, if they're 30 degrees divergent and the shadows are also 30 degrees, the shadows are parallel. You get that? So parallel shadows or parallel poles? It's all in your interpretation of how you did the experiment. So the Aristosthenes experiment proves nothing on whether the earth is flat or a sphere. It's all in the interpretation of what you want to think. And also, Neil deGrasse Tyson came out and said, we know that the earth is a globe because we actually use shadows from NOAA, NOAA, from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. And I'm yelling at the screen. I'm going, we do too. That's how we prove it's flat. Parallel poles or parallel shadows. I mean, come on. It's the same. Actually, if you are measuring a sphere and you use the trig for finding the trigonometry, can you imagine if the poles are splayed apart and your shadows are parallel? You have to assume that the sun is so fucking far away. It's so hard. How are you going to tell the difference between, what was it the Jesuit astronomers came up with, a range between 18 million to 93 million, and they chose the one that was the furthest away, 93 million miles, because basically the shadows are parallel on these, assuming that, because they used the 8 inches per mile, which is, the Surveyor's Handbook. I've read it. It says that this formula with 8 inches per mile is accurate up to 500 miles. And in practical reality, in practical purposes, you're never going to be looking more than 500 miles. So it's basically correct within any visual referenced experiment. And if you have parallel shadows, then you're trying to find out, if first you say this pole's here and this one's here, and you try to find out the curvature occluded between them, and you have to add a bunch of extra math to the trig that you already did. So you're just adding extra math because you're assuming the earth is a sphere, but we're using the same shadows from NOAA. So, but if you go into the same shadows and you take the same exact data from NOAA and you say, okay, my assumption is that the earth is a plane, and you do the trig with the same exact shadows, then the sun is 3,052 miles away. And the moon must be exactly the same distance, maybe slightly closer, because they're the same size during an eclipse. And so when they say it's debunked, and it's hard to see, like when David Weiss gets stomped on with the because he's not a mathematician. And a lot of flat earthers they're not mathematicians, and they need me to go in there and rip apart, like Simon Dan and these Professor Dave types. It's just easy. See, by proposing such huge distances, they make Earth insignificant. Exactly. 93 million miles. Make people feel unimportant. And in fact, it's the opposite. You know what? I had an out-of-body experience when I was 19. I was a Mormon missionary. And I was teaching a discussion with my companion in Argentina, in Cordoba. By the way, Hitler stayed there in a hotel, lived there in a hotel in La Falda, Cordoba, for a while. Because I took Eichhorn, his friend, I took their grandchildren to Sunday school, and they had this huge hotel. It's called the Eden Hotel. Have you ever looked up the Polygon? Have you ever looked up the Eden Hotel in Argentina? Like Garden of Eden. When I was there, it had not been refurbished yet. And the kids I took to church, their family owns that hotel. They're probably 20 years younger than me. They're in their 40s. But they are managing that hotel, and they've completely refurbished it. But when they were kids, they were like, Hitler stayed here with my grandpa. And I was like, oh, really? This was back in 1985. Back in 1985, and I'm thinking, and I went back to this other missionary who'd been in the city for a long time. Elder Call was his name. And I said, do you know that the Eichhorn kids said that their grandfather was friends with Hitler and he stayed at that hotel? And he goes, oh, yeah, the whole town knows it. It's no secret. I was like, what? So there's a town south of La Falda. If you look on your map, when you go look up that hotel, it's in La Falda, which means the skirt. If you look south of La Falda, near the lake, there's a city called Carlos Paz. And Carlos Paz has so many fucking Nazis that live there. The town language is German. In fact, when I was on a mission in that area, I went to the bookstores and I was trying to find courses on German. And then I got transferred out of there, and I wound up going to the north, to Tucumán, where the rebellion started, right before the Malvinas War. I had a branch president that had bullet holes all in his Ford Falcon. And I had a wild time in Argentina. We met a guy that wanted to kill us because Reagan helped the British with radar during the Falkland Islands War. I met a man in Cordoba in a town called Belleville. If you go on Google Maps, you look up Belleville, La Falda, and Carlos Paz. There's just these German-looking people, Germans everywhere. And we met this family. This woman kept coming to church, and she was an older woman in her 50s, probably 60, gorgeous lady. And her husband looked like he was a typical Nazi SS soldier. And the way he talked, it was just a very gruff man. And when he sat with us, you could just see the pain in his soul. These people, a lot of them were compelled to work under Hitler. They didn't want to. And so everybody had German names and they spoke German, and I was going to learn German. But then when I went up north, they sent me to the city Tucumán, where the rebellion started. And that's where Videla became the dictator over Argentina for a little jaunt. But what was I going to say before that? Oh, one of the guys was a soldier in the Falkland Islands War. This was my first introduction to Jesuit torture when I was on my mission. This guy, hold on a second. He said that he would not believe in God. I had a a near-death experience. I call it a death experience. I was underwater for 2 hours. Did you have one? This man that came to our branch for a meeting, he was a soldier in the Falkland Islands War, and he was our age. You know, he'd just come out of the military because the Falkland Islands War happened in 82, and I was down there at the beginning of, or late 83, and I was there in February of 84. They just finished the Malvinas War. And here I am on the street walking around. And Reagan had helped the British with radar and communications. Some people didn't like us. We were questionable. I had a companion that had a pen in his pocket. This lady was yelling at us from a balcony, and she was going, "You work for the CIA. You work for the CIA. Son de la CIA. Son de la CIA." And my companion, he grabbed his pen, and he was going, "Estamos en la calle y hay una mujer gritando que somos de la..." And I go, "Will you stop that? You're going to get us killed. What the fuck are you doing?" And he was Argentine. He was from Buenos Aires. And, but he was acting like he was talking in his, that lady freaked out. She was like, "Ah!" She went running back in her house. I said, "Dude, that's going to get out. People are going to start talking about us, and we might get in some trouble. Will you stop doing that?" It was funny, though. This man, he said he didn't believe in God anymore. The one that was our age. And we said, "Why?" And he said when he worked in the Falkland Islands, his job, he was a soldier at a prison where they were keeping prisoners that were British and Argentine. Once. But he said that they would come and torture the prisoners every day. Oh, my out-of-body experience, I'll tell you about it. This man our age, he was 19, 20. He said he would not believe in God anymore because he saw priests who to him represented God, these Jesuit priests. And Jorge Bergoglio, who became Pope, he was the cardinal right then when I was in Argentina, and he was in a scandal because these priests had been kidnapped and they were being tortured by a rebel group. And then Bergoglio turned them over so that they were found. He betrayed them, and it was a tit-for-tat trade exchange and that involved his own Jesuit priests being tortured and died and stuff. It was just nasty stuff. One of my companions from Buenos Aires taught me all about Bergoglio. I hate him. I was like, "Why do you hate Bergoglio?" Oh my God, you have no idea. So I knew a lot about him. I knew a lot about Nazis. I knew Hitler was in Argentina. I knew all this stuff in 1984, 85. But it was sad that this guy, when he came to our branch meeting, he eventually got baptized. I wonder if he's still in the church. I hope he's not, actually, because I've discovered Mormon church is so fraudulent as well. And I've heard they're slurping babies under the temple as well. There's so many testimonies of that. But this guy said that the Jesuit priest would come out and torture the prisoners every day. And he said the screams and the sounds and everything, he said it was unbearable. And he had to be there and watch as the man would show up every day. And I said, "Why was he doing it?" He said, "I don't know." And I thought maybe he's just a rogue priest and he's getting his jollies because, he was just a bad priest, Yeah, they are men devoid of God, those that would torment. Yeah, I mean, could you imagine? But you have to because, that's where the skull and bones come from. I believe each time you see a skull with the crossed femurs, that was an innocent victim that was tortured so that someone could make their bones. God is exactly. I won't join any church or religion anymore because God is personal. I feel exactly the same way. I woke up and I just thought, especially after I had my out-of-body experience, I actually talked to God. Not to God, I talked to the Lord in that out-of-body experience. I'll tell you this story. I was in a missionary discussion in Cordoba. The neighborhood was called 9 de Julio, if you're Argentine, and 9th of July. And we were the Coria family, Coria. and sent. It was a family, the wife, and they had 4 children, and the oldest was maybe 11, and they had a young baby. And we were sitting at their kitchen table. We'd already given them maybe 2 or 3 discussions, and they have to attend church 2 times at least before you can baptize them. And they had been coming out to church more than that, but the father hadn't come. But we would challenge them to pray and take the Book of Mormon and pray and ask the Lord, get a spiritual confirmation, and then we can baptize you. And he said he was not going to get baptized or authorize, his children get baptized. His wife could baptize if she wanted to. She's an adult, but the kids were not going to be baptized unless he felt something or got an answer from the Lord. So I was sitting there, and my companion started teaching the other half the lesson, and I was sitting there with my hands like this, and I was looking at the tablecloth, and I was just thinking, man, I wish the Lord would answer them. So if they could just get baptized, we could get this over with, and it'd be great for this family. They're wonderful. And we're all sitting around the kitchen table. I remember the daughter was sitting across from me, the son, and the baby was in the mom's lap. My companion's sitting here. So there's all 8 of us around this table in the kitchen. And I'm sitting with my back along this cinder block wall. This was not an expensive home. It was made of cinder blocks in a town. It wasn't the worst. It wasn't like a villa or a favela type, but it was nicer than that, but still. And I was sitting with my back almost against the cinder block. And suddenly when I was sitting there, I started vibrating and I started charging up. And it was just like, and the frequency started going up and up, and it just kept going up, and it was increasing. And it got so high, and the vibration got so intense. It was like kind of like when your leg falls asleep and you can't move because you can't stand the feeling. Kind of like that, but different. But it just got like scary, uncontrollable. It got so intense and so fast, and it just kept accelerating. It was going up and up and up and up and up. And I thought if I just even moved my pinky like that I was just going to explode and flatten the cinder blocks. And I went, and then right when I got to the point where I thought I couldn't stand it anymore, I heard a pop. It was kind of like a bubble sound, like, and then I was floating above the house. I was about like 30 feet, probably 30 feet above the rooftop, and I looked around and I could see the city and street lights and everything. And I looked up to my right, and there was what looked like the moon, but it didn't have any craters. It was just a white circle. And I remember I flew toward it, and I went around it clockwise. And then in front of me appeared another white circle, and I flew around it counterclockwise. And then another planet. There were planets, and then another planet appeared in front of me. And it must have been, was it Moon, Mercury? Was it Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars? I must have gone around the moon, then around Venus. I went around Mercury, but then this voice told me, you go through them. Don't go around them, go through them. And so I thought, okay. And I had faith. I felt like I could make my soul. I was in my own energy toroid. I remember looking to the side, and I was a transparent ball that was about 1.5 meters in diameter. Transparent. And I think it was though my energy toroid. And I remember I went through the sun, and I remember going through asteroids, because I went up to the asteroids and I started to go around them, and I sped up and just went through them. That must have been right after or before Mars. But then I remember I went through another one. I think I remember Saturn. But Jupiter was obvious because it was this huge one that just so big, and my peripheral view was completely occluded by the size of this thing. And then when I went through the last planet, I was in the blackness of space, but I was still increasing in speed, and it was going faster and faster and faster. And then suddenly the blackness just became white. Everything got brighter and brighter and brighter, and suddenly the light in the sky, just got bright, 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 bright. And suddenly I went into like a wormhole. And it was the waters above. Now I know. But I went through the waters above and the stars were in it. And it was very bright. And then when I came out the top of that, I was over this transparent floor and I was dressed in a white robe and the floor was misty. And I saw these two personages, these beings made of light. I mean, they were just emitting light. They were dressed in white and they were just beaming with light, but it was dark. It was dark outside, but you could see you could just see them, but everything around them was black. But I noticed through the floor this giant world. I saw all of these continents and oceans and islands, and it looked like, I looked down and I was looking to see if I could recognize like the American continents and some of the geography, and I didn't recognize anything. But it looked like, I would say, all the way to the horizon underneath our feet, it was maybe 55 to 70 continents or land masses that were big. And it was, I just went right up to these. At first, they were like maybe 2 football fields away from me. And I just kind of floated towards them. I was maybe floating, say, 10 inches off of the floor. But the floor was cloudy and misty. And I went right up to the being on my left. And I knew who it was. It was the Lord. And he was just beaming. The light was just coming out of his skin. It was just, and just, you could still see his facial features. But he has, you know, he looks like a lot of his paintings. He has kind of a narrow face, but he actually has more of a square jaw face like mine. He has definite jaw points here, and he has a square face, but it's broader. He has more of a tough Viking looking face. I mean, not Viking, but I mean, he just had a more square face than I remember. It's not like usually the paintings, he has a narrow head, but he looked different. And he asked me, he says in Spanish, he goes, ¿Qué es lo que quieres? What is it that you want? And I said, que contestes a la familia para que se bauticen. You know, like, please answer this family so they can be baptized. And he looked at me and he said, ¿Por qué? And without blinking, I think I waved my left arm over the floor. And I said, because I love them, just look at them. And I waved my arm over the floor, and the mist on the floor parted. And we were looking right in the kitchen at the table. And I saw myself and my companion and the father and the mother, the kid on her lap, and all of us sitting. And then I immediately started thinking to myself as I'm looking down. So there we are. It's God and the Lord and me. We're looking down through the floor at this family in their kitchen. And I thought, why do we baptize? What is baptism? Like, where did it come from? What does it mean? Like, why? I think the Lord doesn't like it if he's asking me why. I'm like, what are we doing? You know? And then suddenly I was back in my body, and I was sitting in the discussion with the family, and I was looking over my hands. And I thought, oh, I didn't want to leave yet, you know. But I remember I looked around. I looked at the daughter across from me, and she was watching my companion give the lesson. And I looked around at everybody at the table, and they were all looking at him. Nobody was looking at me, so I don't think I became frozen in a trance that anybody noticed. And I probably think my whole experience in Earth time may have just been a fraction of a second, so nobody even noticed. But the whole experience was maybe 10 or 12 minutes. But after that, I always had a doubt about baptism, and I always suspected the earth was flat. But I didn't know what to do about it. So I went ahead and got married in the Salt Lake Temple, and I baptized my children. But it wasn't until I started to find out. I was in Egypt, and I found I was working for a commercial hatchery company. We were building chicken hatcheries in Alexandria, and we had an apartment in Cairo. Actually, it was in Heliopolis, and we would go on days off and go to Giza and rent horses, and ride and race horses around in the sand on the desert. And then one time this guy sent me with his son to go to the museum, and I went through the sarcophagi and looked through the. By the way, baptism is how Tammuz became basically Baal and the whole sun god story, and it has nothing to do with Jesus because he did not die in Israel, and he doesn't appreciate baptism because it's winter solstice when the sun dies for 3 days, and then it goes down to Capricorn, in 3 days, and on that parallel, it sets and rises on the same parallel, and then it starts going north again. That's all it means. It's astrotheology. But the baby slurpers and the like Theo Von says, they would use that to control their people and show signs in the sky. And the baptism was sometimes done in blood, and it was to represent when the sacrificial figure, whether it was Mithra or Tammuz or Krishna or Dionysus or Bacchus or any of the ones, or Jesus, or he was just not the first one. And when I started to learn all of that, I realized that even Muhammad in the Quran, I was flipping through a version I have in the Harvard Classics, and where Muhammad says that the Jews pretended to kill Isa, the son of Mary, but they actually didn't. But they needed to. They needed to come up with a religion to fit the sun worshiping story. Basically, if you look at Epstein's Island with the Sumerian temple design and what they're still carrying on today, was where baptism came from. So you look in church, you have baptism, which is how, whoever became Baal. You drink the blood of a sacrifice. You eat the flesh of a sacrifice. You do that to pay for sins. You worship on Sunday. You can just go down the list. And when you talk to a Christian about all that, they go, oh no, they've got it backwards. They're trying to tie it together. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just coincidence. It's like, yeah. So I left. But the thing that kicked me out was when I was in Egypt. I don't know, Polygon, are you Mormon, or have you ever seen what's called the Book of Abraham? Let's see. Let me show you the screen. Have you ever seen book of... I feel ashamed for the Lord. I think I didn't catch on fast enough and I baptized my children. I think I should have immediately left my mission, went home, and just waited for further guidance or something. Book of Abraham. Facsimile. This is supposedly... Joseph Smith bought a mummy when they were in Ohio. There was a carpetbagger who came from New York, and he had 5 mummies. And the Mormon church bought a couple of them. I don't know what they did with them, but they had scrolls that came with them. And they brought them to Joseph Smith because he was supposed to have seer stones that he put in his hat. And they wanted him to see if he could translate he learned from witchcraft, by the way. He was a white witch. And he made up the Book of Abraham. And it's just garbage. Let's see, Mormon Handbook, where's facsimile one? Okay, this one here. If you see my screen, okay, right here. Oh, I like this because it shows both. Let's see, I'm not seeing the book. I had a friend join the Mormon church. Lost track of him not long after that happened. Yeah, it's hard to leave the Mormon church because you go to church and it's so loving and you got all these people that love you. They isolated him. Yeah. It's not quite like the Jehovah's Witnesses as controlling. But once you leave the Mormon church, basically like when you move somewhere, you can instantly find a job. You can find babysitters. You can get people to help you. You've got Relief Society, which is the women's program. And it's like a complete surrounding. It's like everything's free and we get all the help we want. So why would we leave the church? It's like, really, it's great when you are Mormon and everybody's helping you. It's better than being a Freemason at the lodge for people helping you. But this is the book of Abraham. The book of Abraham, Joseph Smith said, was a book that he received revelation where it talked about principles of it's in a book called the Doctrine and Covenants, which came later, which were some books that Joseph Smith invented. And he's got sections. And section 132 of the Doctrine and Covenants talks about, it's called the Pearl of Great Price. There are 4 books the Mormons have. They have to use the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. This is the Pearl of Great Price. If you flip through a Pearl of Great Price, you're going to see this image. It's called Facsimile 1. And this is in the book of Abraham. And that's where this is supposed to be Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac on the altar. And the angel came up. Oh, let me go to the page where you can see my pointer. You see my pointer on it. Okay. This is supposed to be Abraham slaying Isaac on an altar that he made. And this bird is the angel of the Lord that came and stopped him right before he killed him. You know that story. And this is the actual papyrus page that Joseph Smith received in Ohio when he bought the mummy. And it's torn. And these parts here are sketched in. So look, this part where this actually is a person receiving their mummification. But since it was torn right here, Joseph Smith drew in the arms up in the air like, no, 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 don't kill me, which isn't true. And this is Keneb, the mortician, who would mummify the people. And this is a blood bleeding table. And I saw all of this in the museum. The bleeding tables always have lion faces, and they're shaped like a lion. They have lion paws, and the haunches in the back are lower than the front, so that the blood runs down the channels this way, and it goes down the back haunches into these pools where they would collect the blood. And then these jars are for the heart, lungs, liver, and spleen. And they're represented by the gods of the falcon, the jackal, the monkey, and the orangutan, I think is the other one. And then there's a crocodile in the foundation. This was like letterhead in Egypt back in the day. This was the letterhead, and you had the crocodile in the foundation that represented the strength of Egypt. And this was a document called the Permit to Breathe in the Afterlife. And so when you got mummified, you had this certificate, just like this scroll was when they bought the mummy. This funky document was included. It was with this dead mummy. And they brought it to Joseph and said, translate it. Can you see that right with the cursor? Yeah. If I go to the right screen, you see the cursor. But this was all Joseph received, was this exact papyrus. And the rest, you can see how the hands were drawn in as. And he said this was Abraham slaying Isaac, that story we read in the Old Testament. But it's completely garbage, because this bird is Horus, just like in the movie The Mummy. This is Horus, who leads you into the afterlife. And this is the mortician doing the mummification. And this is the person who's paid to be mummified. And this is where his 4 important organs go that he'll be judged with. Your heart gets measured. Have you heard of Mott? Like the Statue of Liberty's torso is and dress or after Mott, who had scales that would measure your heart. Mott. Image. Mott. This was Mott. This Egyptian goddess of Maat, she was the one that had scales that would measure your heart. Your heart had to be lighter than a feather to get into heaven. So that's why your organs are put in these jars: heart, lungs, liver, and spleen. And these are called canopic jars. So anyway, I didn't know any of this. And then I go to Egypt and I visit the museum and I learn all kinds of stuff. I learned how to read hieroglyphics, and I learned so much in the times I went in there. And then I come home and I go to church one day, and I'm reading in the Pearl of Great Price, and I turn the page and I see this facsimile there. And I go, oh, wow, we're permit to breathe in the afterlife. And then I went, oh, dun, dun, dun. It was like, oh, no. And I read what Joseph Smith had underneath, what he put in the writings as what these figures were in this drawing. And he was so wrong. He was out of his mind. He just completely made up everything. He made up everything. And that was in 1999 when I did that. And I was pissed off. But I started to already know that, when he was in Nauvoo, I think he had 14 wives. One of them was 14 years old. So he was a diddler. He was a white witch. He got arrested in New York for putting the stones in his hat with his dad, and they would look for wells for people. And it was illegal to use witchcraft to look for water or gold in Palmyra County in New York. So somebody reported him. And you can see both sides, right, of the facsimile? Yeah. So that, let me go back. If I look up the, what Joseph Smith said, let's see, book. First, let me go up back to the facsimile. Facsimile 1, Book of Abraham. Facsimile from the Book of Abraham. Okay, does it show it? Okay, here it is. Let me make sure you can see that. Okay, this is what Joseph Smith said those figures were. The bird was the angel of the Lord. The man with the knife was Abraham on the altar. The idolatrous priest of Elkanah, that was the mortician, to offer up Abraham as a sacrifice. He was going to offer up Abraham as a... I thought Abraham was going to offer up Isaac, and then the Lord stopped him. The altar for sacrifice, which is actually a bleeding table, a typical bleeding table in Egypt. The idolatrous priest, those jars underneath that are the canopic jars that take your organ, he said those were the idolatrous priests standing before the gods of Elkanah, Libnah, Macarena, and Korash and Pharaoh. Just made up names. And these are the jars, he said. And then Abraham in Egypt, designed to represent the pillars of heaven. Those were the lines at the bottom of the facsimile. He didn't say anything about the crocodile, did he? The Egyptians meant to signifying Shalman, Shamo, to be high, or the heavens, answering to the Hebrew word. I mean, this is just total bullshit. Completely made it up. Just because someone brought him a mummy and those papyri, that's the plural of papyrus. So that was another reason why I left the church, because I knew the Lord told me, but basically he didn't like baptism. So that covers all of Christianity, really. It's all astrotheology based on winter solstice. And especially, then I started hearing stories of, when you're in Salt Lake, there was a woman who was a singer in the late 60s and 70s with her family and her sisters that were popular in the church. And they were essayed underneath the temple, and one of them was on the altar about to be ended in a ritual, and the father was in the parking lot and said, "Go find your sister," and she ran in through the tunnels and pulled her right off the altar and said, "No, you can't do that to my sister," and ran out. And then she claims they shot a gun, though, in the hallway. But how would you shoot a gun if you're down in the tunnels underneath the temple where the altars are, without it echoing or ricocheting all over the place? But I wouldn't doubt it. I went to the Nauvoo temple. Have you ever seen the Nauvoo? You haven't. Let me show you. This is interesting. There's pentagrams all over it. I lived in Decatur, Illinois, and my ward told me to go to the temple to work in security during the open house. This temple was destroyed in the 1800s when the Mormons were run out, when they had to pioneer trek to Utah. And it's been rebuilt since, and it was rebuilt when I lived there. This is in Nauvoo, Illinois. It sits right on the bank of the Mississippi. It's in western Illinois. I don't know if you know where that is, Polygon, but if you look closely, they don't show the pictures too close, do they? There are pentagrams on the windows. You know, actually, the temple in Salt Lake City has pentagrams over doorways and all over it, but let me try to find a good angle. They don't give you a clean angle where you can zoom in on the... Do you see there are those round windows? See those purple windows on... Let me look on over. Yeah, that's what you're looking at. Now let me move it over. Right here. Those round windows at the top, they have pentagrams. They're purple windows with pentagram. Usually purple means passion in esoteric terms, you know, for Freemasons. And then these windows all have the sun symbol. And I just saw Masonic and pentagrams. These are just flat out pentagrams, not like, you know. Wait, what happened? It's going to show me something else. I don't want to look at a blurry, cloudy view over a treetop. Let me go back. Okay, right here. I'm trying to... It wants me to download that image, that's why. Let me look at another one. Nauvoo. Let's go back. I want to show you how blatant it is. It was just, I remember I was working security and they had us going from corner to corner and we had to switch, a bunch of us guys, and they said, "We want you to move. We're going to make you move around every hour and change corners." Okay? So we went. Isn't this weird? They keep taking, all these pictures are diagonal, so you cannot blow up a straight picture from the side to show the pentagrams. That's evil. Or it's in the dark. Are you looking at what I'm looking at? Yeah. Dang it. I want a straight side view and there's not one. Let's see. I'll get close enough. Where is... I want to expand on those pentagrams on the side windows. Let's see if this one has it. Can I blow up this picture? Yeah, okay, here we go. Look at that. Do you see it? Look at that. Those are just straight up pentagrams on purple glass. And then this is sun symbolism. Here's the sun with faces on it. Those suns have faces on them. And we were looking at these just straight up pentagrams and a purple passion window. And these pillars have, they look like pillars, just like Masonic pillars, like what's it called? Joachim Boaz. But it's actually got the sun's face on it. So this is esoteric sun worship. And it's very Masonic. If you go through, I used to be a veil worker. I used to pull people through the veil and take all of the grasps and the tokens from them to let them come into heaven as a volunteer. But I really, really don't like that church anymore. I'm just turned off. Did you see it? Not a pentacle, but definitely a pentagram. Yeah, they're just straight up. Did I find a good image? Isn't it weird how they don't let you get a direct view? See, they don't have the pentagrams on the front. This is where the steps are going in the front. But let me try to find one that's closer, not as occluded. It's like they're hiding them. It's either too far away or it's at an angle where you can't see it. Or it's got a shadow over the eave. Was this the old one or the new one? Or they're so tiny it's at a distance. Let's see what this one does. There you go. Look at that. Is that good enough? Let me show you. Look at that. I remember when I was in high school, I had a friend tell me, like, "You're Mormon? Isn't that a cult?" And I was like, "No, it's not a cult." You can see why the locals would tear it down. Look at that. Those are the pentagrams on the... Now look also at the stone. See, in between each purple window, there's also a stone carved pentagram. If you look here, there's a pentagram in stone carved into the stone on these little, it was called like pedicles in between each window. Do you see that? Wow. They don't, if you go in the visitor center in Salt Lake City, they have a big, if you've ever seen the Eastern Star pentagram that's got the 5 different colors, kind of looks like that Chinese chessboard. There's like a yellow, a green, blue, white, red. It's the Eastern Star. And it's right in the visitor center below the Christus statue. And it's pretty big on this wall. And I don't know how they explain it. They just say, well, the pentagram has always been a symbol throughout the millennia of whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I remember showing my mother that, what do you think, Mom? She's like, I don't know. It doesn't matter what you show a devout member that's been a sheeple for so long. They just deny it and they'll just look away and go, oh, it doesn't matter. Doesn't mean anything. Just pentagrams all over the place on a purple window. Yeah, the first one was taken down like in 1842. They say at this time, Joseph Smith was going through the ranks in Freemasonry, and I think he'd gotten to the 27th degree right before he was martyred in Carthage, Illinois. When he fell out the window, he said, is there no for the widow's son? Was it peace for the widow? It's the hailing sign of distress for the Freemason. It's like one of the last things you're supposed to say, like if you're being threatened and there are other brothers around there, they're obligated to help you. And he ran to the window right before they shot him. He actually killed somebody. He shot through the door when he was in the jail. That somebody had brought him a gun. And he said he went to the window. Have mercy on widow's son. Yeah. It's known as the hailing sign. Actually, when you're in the temple at the veil, we would raise our arms and say, Pei, Le, Ale, and lower your hands. I think that's actually a joke in your face. It's like, what are you in for it? To get paid, get laid, and the beer. Pei, Le, Ale. I feel so weird making fun of it now. It was so sacred. And it's not. It's you promise to keep the secret. But to me, if you fooled me and deceived me going all the way in there until I got in there and actually became a veil worker where I received all these things from people, you had to give me all of the signs and all of the handshakes and all of the. I get them all the time in public. Like I was in a Home Depot talking to a guy I met who gave me he was Jehovah's Witness, but he gave me a grasp that went up my wrist, and I recognized it. And I was in a plaza in a Texas city. I was in McKinney on the square singing. I was trying to sell my house, and I just gotten laid off, and I had to go down and help my mom. And I thought, I'll just start having fun. I went down bucket list. I went downtown and started singing for free. And there were people that would pick a musician spot, and they were promoting live music downtown on the square. And I was down there, and this man came up, and I started going down there a lot. And this man approached me at night. The Lord would not recognize the houses they built in his name. Yeah, he would say, I do not recognize you. It's crazy. But I was approached by a Freemason. I didn't realize it, but then I realized it. This guy came up to me, and he was a black man also. You know how they say like the black people have their own masonry out of Atlanta. It's called, is it Boule? And I think the typical Scottish Rite Masons are racist. I've been told that. So it shocked me when he said he was friends with all of these people downtown. But I think it goes beyond Freemasonry. I think there are actually a lot of them that are Satanists in that town. And he said to me one night, I'd been out there singing, and I was trying to pay my water bill. I was just waiting for this broker to sell my house so I could get out of there and go back to Houston. And he came by and he said, hey man, what are you doing? He was giving me signs. He goes, you know, my son has a band. It's called Cyclops. And I go, oh yeah, that's cool. He goes, yeah, you're pretty good. He goes, you guys might want to play together sometime. I go, oh yeah, cool. He goes, yeah, did I tell you the name of his band? It's called Cyclops. He kept repeating the word Cyclops. I'm like, okay, I get it. And then he said, you know, I've been friends with people in this town for a long time. He said, as a kid, I used to wash the windows around this square, and I'm pretty much friends with all of them that still own these businesses and all over. And he turned, he looked me right in the eyes. He goes, and they want to know who you are. It was kind of like, I felt like Django going into town on a horse. We want to know who you are. We don't think you're telling us the truth. We want to know who you are now. And I said, yeah. And I just kind of blew him off. But when he shook my hand, he gave me a pretty much high up Masonic grip. And I can always tell when I get him who's who and who's what. And so anyway, I kind of just blew him off. I wasn't interested. I don't know what he was trying to tell me, and they want to know who you are, and my son's in a band, and Cyclops, one eye, you know. And he goes, and he looked at me, and he turned his head, and he got disillusioned. He just goes, he goes, you're not hearing me. And he turned around and he walked off to go get back in his car. And I walked behind him over to his car, and when he was getting in, I put my hand on his mirror, and I go, hey, I heard you loud and clear. I said, just tell him I come from Houston. I was initiated in the temple, in Mormon temple, and I'm a NASA kid. I grew up, my dad worked at Mission Control, and I'm selling my house. I'm out of here as soon as a broker can get it sold. And he was like, okay, thank you. And he left. So it's like, I literally got contacted by a messenger from the local lodge or something. It was just a very controlled town. You have no idea. McKinney's probably one of the best towns to live in Texas. It was on the nation's top 5. Like when they were doing the top 5 cities to live in the U.S. in those magazines. And they had like a city in New York and a San Diego, and then McKinney, Texas was in there. And it's like number 5. If you actually knew what goes on at the top level. I mean, there's a chop house there where they do steaks, and everybody wears a black bandana. And I was out there when I was singing, and The cook came out and gave me a black bandana. I was like, wow, thank you. It's like they wanted me to look the part. If I was going to stand out in the public musician spot, they wanted me to look the part. But right after they did that and they accepted me, the cops and everybody that looked at me, they would come right up and say, how are you today? And greet me, and everybody was nice to me. Oh, really? You were invited to join Scottish Rite? That seems typical, but OTO? Ugh. Ugh. OTO scares me. That's... Ugh. It seems like OTO is more of the baby slurping, bloody, nasty ones. You don't want. Who was it? Do you know who Schneblin? Remember the guy now that's got the long white beard, who's been telling the truth about religion and Satanism, and he dresses kind of like an Orthodox Jew now. He's got this long beard. But he's been a Freemason, he's been a Mormon, he's been a Satanist, he's been all these different things. His name is Bill Schneblin. And he said, within the Masons, you want to watch out for the jesters. What do they call them? The ones that ride around on the lawnmowers and the go-karts in the city parade. I'm forgetting the term they go by. But he said, yeah, he goes, you don't want to. Not guys you want to hang around with. The Shriners that wear the fez hats of Islam. I don't really understand how Islam fits into Freemasonry and why. But the OTO guy said, I want you to come to a mass. There'll be a naked women on the altar, and he laughed. No thanks. A naked woman on the altar. You know, like getting sacrificed, right? Ooh. You don't want that. It's really, I was shocked like I'm telling you, when I went to this town in McKinney, that if I hung around on the square and I was going to be there, they wanted me to act a certain way. They wanted me to dress a certain way. And, I think I was actually invited to go to the grotto and play facing the wall, like Tom Cruise in the movie Eyes Wide Shut. I was invited to it wasn't going to be an Eyes Wide Shut party, but it was all of the top towns, most powerful people go to the back of this restaurant, and sometimes they bring their wives, and sometimes they don't, if you know what I mean. And they have a musician, and the way that the man that described it to me was the leader of the First Baptist Church that started in that town, a very prominent man in that city. And even to mention his name, I was chewed out by the chef at this restaurant one time. You don't ever mention his name. Oh, didn't know. But, yeah, luckily, the creepiest, closest I ever got, when I first graduated, I went to Thunderbird, if you've ever heard of that. It's ASU's graduate business program for international. And the person that hired me was this guy named Collins. I don't want to say his first name because he's still alive. He would be 71 right now. Might be still alive. There might be people that might try to dox him and hunt him down and say, hey, Alex Aquarius. Well, his name's Steve. But his older brother is John Todd, if you've heard of Lance Collins. So I'm at Thunderbird, and I'm looking through the job placement center, and I'm about to graduate. And I look, and it says there's this lab, and it's a vaccine lab, and we're looking for, my specialty was Spanish and Portuguese, and we're looking for someone to manage the territory in Latin America, our operations and vaccine sales. And it's exciting. And he came to the campus, and he gave a presentation to about anyone who was interested. About 20 people went. It was down to me and this other guy. 3 guys. There's one guy from Harvard that was this Mexican guy that came from Harvard. And then there was me and this Asian guy that wanted to manage Asian territory for him. And we went to dinner, and I brought my wife at the time. I was newly married, and I got hired. So then they moved me out to New Jersey, and we bought a house. But this company was only like less than $35 million in sales, but we sold Merrick vaccine for all the chickens in the world. I was the biggest, Alex Jones always talks about Merrick vaccine, and he's got all these theories, and he's dead wrong. I was the biggest Merrick vaccine salesman in the world for chickens. And we had human vaccines on test, and we were testing H1N1. And I think we had the virus, but we were doing gain of function. And it was talked about in a meeting, and I said, excuse me, and I asked a pathologist, VP, and the head of scientific affairs, what's this virus H1N1? I've never seen that. He goes, oh, that one affects humans, and we expected to break out in about 10 years. So by about 2002, do that. When did H1N1 break out? Wasn't it 2004? But he almost nailed it. And I was in that meeting. I was oblivious. But I remember talking to my boss, whose name was Collins, and we were in his office one day. And I'd gone back to Houston to play golf with my dad one weekend, and I flew back, and he said, so you get along with your dad? And I'm like, yeah. We go and play golf and had a good time. I said, you ever hang out with your dad? And he goes, ooh, no. Oh. He made this look like he was going to vomit. I'm like, really? Don't get along with your dad? And he goes, no. My dad was brutal. When I was growing up, my dad was brutal. This man looked like he had a very unhappy childhood. I remember one time we were in a car driving by a Catholic church. I said, that's the church you go to, right? And he goes, church is for children, but once you're an adult, you don't need it. You don't need it. But I remember him sitting in his high back leather chair, and he was talking about his older brother. Like when he said, when I was little, he said, like when I was in kindergarten, my brother was already in his 20s, and he came back to visit for Christmas, but he went out west. He lived in California, but he disappeared. Nobody knows where he went, and nobody heard from him again when I was little. So this was in 92. And he would have been in his 30s. So we're talking 30 years ago. It would have been in the late 60s and the 70s. That's when John Todd disappeared, Lance Collins. And I started just putting all the twos and twos together. And he talked about how his brother was never heard from again. And I remember him, he leaned back in his high back chair and he goes, Lance. And then on YouTube here, I found the John Todd tapes where these talks. A lot of the truthers have found John Todd, and he talks about like the spells on 9/11 and how to do a spell. You have to have a tempo, and you have to tap a tempo, and somebody has to chant. And how the teacher in the kindergarten room with Bush was saying, "Kite must fly, hit steel. Children tap," and she's tapping on the table, and the children are bowing by picking up things under their chair. And Bush has my pet goat upside down. Remember all that stuff. And it suddenly hit me. I'm looking at the picture of John Todd. I'm like, he looks just like Steve. Oh my gosh. They're like same bone structure. I'm like, oh my God, that's his brother. They're from the same city. But when I was there, actually, person who used to run the Defense Department until the end of Desert Storm came and was on the board of our company. I won't say his name right now, but who was over the Defense Department during Desert Storm and then left. He came to our company and he was a board member. But later he went to Halliburton. But I remember he was in a meeting with me a couple of times and he liked me and he wanted to send me to Brazil to start up a new level 4 laboratory in Brazil. And I was going to live there. And my wife said no, she didn't want to live in Brazil. Kind of ruined my career because then I was going to, instead of going down there to live, we would have had security guards, private teachers, maids, service, awesome house, community, And I would have been president of a wholly owned subsidiary of a public company. It was on the American Stock Exchange. And the wife said, nope, don't want to get eaten by a monkey, and I won't see my mom. I said, look, you can fly home anytime you want. And she never got the big picture. And yet I was married when I went to Thunderbird and got a degree in MBA in international management. And she just didn't get it. But on that, the CEO of that company, his name was Hager, Ted, and he Hager. Now his grandson is married to Jenna Bush, and the other guy I told you about, who was the Bush's vice president in 2000, Collins told me in 92. I said, so why did Mr. Cheney come on the board of our company? And he said, they say he's going to be the next vice president. This was during Clinton's first term, and I said, how would anybody know that? And he just looked at me real stern. He goes, you don't know who you're working for, do you? And I said, man, I guess I don't. But it was just a weird company to work in. And then I had a distributor in Peru who was a Lee, L-I, elite family. He was assassinated in Peru. One time we were looking for him. He was playing polo in England with Prince Charles. And I had another distributor in Switzerland. Eventually, they transferred me over to Europe, and I was managing Europe for a couple of years. I got to travel all over Europe. At first, I started flying, and then I realized you get around in Europe on trains. The Swiss told me, like, why are you taking airplanes? But my Swiss distributor spoke like 5 languages. He was in Basel. If you've ever heard of Basel, that's where all of the top things happen as far as all the truthers and conspiracy theorists talk about. And I've been in Basel. That's where my distributor was. And this company, what else did we do? I sent waterless shampoo samples to NASA. When I was a Mormon as a kid, my home teacher was Cultus, Gary Cultus, Coultas. He wound up being deputy manager of the shuttle program. And I sent him some samples of some waterless shampoo gel. You just put it in your hair and it dries up like eraser dust. You just brush it out and your hair is clean. Wouldn't that be great to send up a rocket where you don't have to have all extra water so that the astronauts can wash their hair? Any pound you save is tons of solid rocket fuel you're saving. And they never even tried it out. They ignored what I sent them. And I knew something was up. And Gallo, this Sicilian president of this company I worked for, it was called Immunogenetics, that had the lab. He was laughing like he knew the space program was fake. And my house was across the street from the Masonic Lodge, and he had a big Mercedes 500, and he would drive up and go running in every once a week. So I knew he was pretty big in that. And he'd go, hey, how are your shampoo samples going with your NASA administrator friend? He would laugh. I said, you know what? It's odd. I just called him, and he said they're behind his door in his office. And I asked him, have you taken him to a meeting, or has anybody talked about it? And he goes, yeah, no. And he just kind of got real nonchalant, and he kind of, But I'm trying to think who else in that company. One of the directors of the pharmaceutical division, the company had a leadership meeting in New Hampshire, and everybody got to go. And they went to the CEO's house, and they were taken in the study and shown the hunting farm. And the guy had a radar imaging with heat-seeking radar. And he said, we know where the animals are where we go hunt them, before we go hunt them. And he had a bunch of rifles. And the director, he goes, it was so cool. He was all stoked about it. And he's like, it was so cool. And I said, well, that's not very sporting if you know where the animals are before you even leave the house over these 2 mountains that he owns and go hunting for them. But we all know today what that's about. But yeah, I've been really close in the belly of the beast, so to speak, with some things that I've done, and traveling a lot too. Being in, I've been just stories I've heard, things I've seen, been all over, things I learned on my mission. And then actually working for a vaccine company, I never got a shot after that. I haven't had a shot since I left working for them in the early 90s, late 90s. And I can tell you all about why. When COVID first came out, I knew about the Pfizer EUA test by like April, or I think it was April of 2020. I was telling people, don't do it. Everybody, shut up. conspiracy theorist. Shut up. I'm like, dude, I worked for a vaccine. I know what I'm talking about. Even my sister, shut up. That's how my mother died. She beat COVID, no vaccination. And then this nursing home manager said, everybody has to get vaccinated or you have to move out. And I told my sister, let's move her out. Don't let them give her a vaccine. And my sister's like, it's not going to hurt her. Shut up. And she had the power of attorney and she let her be vaccinated. I told her, if you let them, she's going to die on oxygen with an oxygen tube. And that's exactly what happened. Like 2 months later, she'd had 3 shots, and she'd already beat COVID without any vaccinations and beat it like in 5 days. And I actually got it, but I had my dose of the drug, starts with the letter I. So anyway, are you still there, Polygon? I'm going to have to check out. It's been fun talking with you to have an OG. Oh, you want to talk about the Patricia, the whole Mark Sargent. Who were you talking about with Jaron? I never liked watching Jaron. His voice has a negative tone to it. Oh, thank you. I'm trying to live stream every night. Maybe I'll make you a moderator and we'll try to do it. I was going to tell you a little quick story about the Patricia with like Jaron. Jaron, when he talks, he's just like, yeah, well, why would you do this? And yeah, right. He's always very mean and sarcastic. He just sounds like a smart ass. So I never liked listening to him, so I never followed him. I didn't follow Mark. But I always liked David Weiss. I always thought he was pretty cool. And I like the stuff he's done now. He knows who I am. I help him with some stuff sometimes. Send him information. I did some math for him about the way that the things squish as they go into the horizon, what it's called. Can't remember the mathematical term. But one time when I had to get an evening job when my mother went into the nursing home, I was living in her condo. And I was watching The Secret Show with Patricia Steer, and I had a blue wrench, and I was moderating, and then I left, and I got a job in the evening, and they always had me scheduled on Wednesday. I was delivering pizza at Pizza Hut, and so I got judged, and I went back and what to think, and she was talking about me, and all I did was I quit going because I got a job. I had to bring in some cash, to buy some crypto. So, yeah, we can talk more about those guys. That was the day. That was already 10 years ago. Can you believe it? So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for coming, and we will see you tomorrow. I usually try to start about 11:30 p.m. And that's it. Peace out. Bye-bye, people.